And we're live.
Another edition of Moped Outlaws.
Get
Greg's
them
got
while
his
they're
coffee.
hot. Fuck yeah. Episode 62.
Will you still need me? Will you still feed me when I'm 62?
Ended you.
Ooh, and the end of the episode.
The recording has ended.
Well.
So we were just talking about Anthony Jeselnik and how fucking funny he is. And how
I know.
dark.
I watched 2 of his specials back to back because it was so deliciously dark and funny. And I felt kind of like I was watching porn. I didn't want anybody to see me watching it.
Kathy walks in and sees you laughing at what are you doing? It's funny, dear. Yeah.
And I'm celebrating the fact that I tested negative for COVID for the first time in 12 days.
So this morning was the first time you tested negative?
Yeah, since my initial PCR test.
Wow, that's funny. Oh my God, that just reminds me of this funny Instagram post. I saw someone, it was like in a CVS or Walmart, and there's the Tampax section, whatever. And on top of one of the boxes is a birth control test. And the caption said, I feel good for her, saved at the 11th hour, or something like that. In other words, she went in to get a pregnancy test, and while she was there to buy it, she got her period. So she
I see. Yeah.
And that's what today's episode's about. Period pains.
Right? Something we know a lot about.
Yep. Because we live with it every single day.
No. It is hard to empathize with that. I mean, if men bled through their penises every 28 days, it'd be a different world.
Yes, it would.
Yeah.
And the hygiene products would be designed differently. I just don't see myself putting anything made of cotton into my wee hole.
I can't believe how quickly this has gone south.
Literally.
I was thinking more of like little diaper heads.
Diaper heads. That sounds like a band name. Little diaper heads opened for green peppers.
Yeah, the idea of putting anything in my urethra sounds horrible.
And women don't do that. Let's just show that we're not completely ignorant.
We're stupid enough to talk about this as if we know something, but we're not completely ignorant.
What is more ignorant, the fool or the fool who follows?
That's right. What a classic Star Wars saying. I wonder where they stole that one from. Yeah, so I'm still alive.
Yeah. And you can taste, but your sense of smell is...
My sense of smell hasn't come back, and my equilibrium's a little bit better. I got on my bike and went for a short ride today and realized, there's still some recovery that has to happen. Like, to get my stamina back is going to take some time. But
yeah. And that just for me, it was a couple months of... Like I told you, I'd have 4 days of feeling great and going, all right, finally through it. And then all of a sudden a day would hit and I'd just be like,
yeah, I'm going to be all lost. Why do I feel shitty? I'm going to think.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then I'll be like, oh.
I know. You're like, am I old? Is that what's happening?
Well, yes.
Old?
Older. And yeah, mostly what I'm looking forward to is there's this, like when I get bad colds, I notice that when my voice finally comes back, it's actually sweeter. Like having been a singer for a long time, there's this thing like right now, if I were to sing, it would be, more of a gravelly, bluesy kind of thing with the little nasally, as you can hear. But there's this renewal of all the tissues that happens. Our bodies process that stuff out, and then they grow new cells. So, I'm looking forward to picking up my guitar and singing some songs in a few days and testing the waters out. And
Nice.
I missed 2 rehearsals with the upbeats, and that was sad. But you know what I realized is I like sleeping in. What?
Speaking of Star Wars, I heard R2-D2 in the background when you just spoke.
No, that wasn't R2-D2.
Really?
It was just a beep.
It sounded like R2-D2. It sounded like...
Probably not. But nonetheless, it was the dark side of R2.
His shadow. Hey, do robots have shadow selves?
That question came up in a conversation I was having one day at work with some people when I worked back at Lucasfilm, and it was like, can droids feel or sense or be involved with the Force?
You know what that just reminded me of? That what's his name? Dick CK Dick? Is he the one who wrote the 3 things about AI? The 3 rules. CK Dick, is it?
I think that's right.
And Terminator, I think, came from his book. Anyway, one of his titles was "Can Androids Dream?" Oh no, it was yeah,
you got it.
I'm gonna wait for you. Like teardrops in the rain. What was that? Gosh darn.
Are you ready?
No, wait.
Okay, I'll wait.
I want to get this.
Shall I sing the Jeopardy theme? Are you ready for that?
Yeah. Ding, 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 ding. What is the fucking movie with Harrison Ford?
Oh, well, that's called Blade Runner. And yeah, you're right. That was retitled. The original title was The Thing You're Trying to Remember, which I can thankfully.
No, it was Can Androids Dream? That was the name of
it's Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? That's what it is.
That was it. Thank you.
Yeah. And
Dick.
I've been thinking about watching Blade Runner 2046 just to see it again. It's been a couple of years since I saw it, and I really enjoyed it the first time.
It was really good. Yeah.
I'm also looking.
For me, it broadened what I remembered of the first film. I was like, oh, I didn't even kind of realize that was going on in the first film.
Yeah, it's one of those sequels that really lived up to the promise, in my view.
I agree.
And of course, it wasn't the same. It was totally different, right? But it still lived up to the promise.
And I love how Jar Jar Binks was brought into the storyline and kind of healed that whole thing that happened in Star Wars.
Jar Jar Binks was not in Blade Runner 2046.
Oh.
Nice try, though. I think I've told you my Indiana Jones origin story. We will spare the audience a repeat of that.
Okay.
But I've also been thinking about watching Indiana Jones 4 because I know Indiana Jones 5 is coming out.
I just threw up into the back of my throat.
Yeah. Well. Oh, well.
Oh, my God. That's like a spinoff of Jar Jar Binks.
Jesus. Yeah, well, Misa Hayden crunching.
I love Jar Jar Binks. I think he was a wonderful character.
He still is. And especially in the Clone Wars, his character development really goes a lot more sophisticated in the Clone Wars animated series. And you can begin to see his brilliance a little bit more.
Nice.
He's also kind of responsible for what happens with the Emperor because he's the guy that starts the vote of no confidence with Chancellor Valorum. And that's what leads to Palpatine becoming Emperor. So it's a mixed bag with Jar Jar. We can blame a lot on him.
It's kind of like Goyim,
Gollum.
How he was.
I was going to say Goyim is something else. Is that the Jewish Lord of the Rings Goyim?
I'll have the Goyim. Side of Goyim, please. Gollum.
One ring to rule them all.
And one ring on fire. Yeah. Gollum.
The other thing I've been doing is watching all kinds of stuff while I was sick with COVID. I
Yeah.
even one of the greatest films, and I still have about a third of it left to watch, is Jackass 4.5.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
Those movies are just stupid, totally stupid. But and I hate myself for laughing, but I laugh. So
They are crazy. God, those guys have put themselves through hell,
yeah,
physical harm.
it's fun to watch them because at the beginning they talk about how they're going to hire some new talent, and what that really means is that the two main guys, Steve-O
Steve-O and
and the other guy, I can't remember his name right now, but
yeah,
they end up like not having to be in a bunch of the stunts. They're like they facilitate the stunts and stuff like that. They're not
right,
exactly the ones who have to do it. And I'm like, oh yeah, I see how this works now. When you get high enough into the Jackass hierarchy, you get to tell people a little bit more about what to do and not get your ass handed to you. You know, but by the same token, oh my god, like he was on Ridiculousness, and they were talking about all the hospitalizations that he had and all of the broken bones and the various like things that have been happening.
right.
The main thing that God, I hate to bring this up again, but here we go. They did a thing with hot sauce.
Yes.
Have you seen that?
No.
So one of the first test stunts they do to see if they're actually going to go through with the movie is they pour really hot sauce into funnels into their anuses, and it made me think of the episode we did about Hot Kitty.
Yeah. Talk about the shadow side.
Right?
I got an idea.
Let's try this. Yeah.
Oh boy. The things
What
we
is it?
do for love.
And or to laugh, or because we're stupid and bored.
Yeah. Because imaginations. That's the interesting thing. You know, I was watching an interview with a woman. Her name's Dr. Adhi, Adhi, two L's. And there's one thing she said is, I noticed when I listened to my ego. Now I'm going to paraphrase, but in essence, she said it doesn't bode well. It usually doesn't go well. And very interesting woman. And I'm currently experiencing where there's this person who's come into my life and I feel very romantically inclined to. And then I also see the push me, pull you of like, should I call? I shouldn't call. What am I feeling? And watching myself get all wound up into a knot of negativity, which is
Yeah, I
sort of
think you should wait till they get their high school diploma.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Have you seen your daughter, baby, standing in the shadow?
Anyway, I'm actually super curious about this, but there's so much of trying to do it right that goes into this,
right.
you
Yeah,
know?
exactly. That's what I was, and I was looking like, where's that come from? It comes from wanting to, in essence, like capture something or hold on to something.
Right, it's a form of grasping. It's also
Right.
a form of insecurity,
Yep.
right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Um,
Yep.
because when you can just allow it to be whatever it's going to become, it's
Right.
much more pleasant for both of you,
Right. Right.
right?
Right. If she's going to pour hot sauce in my anus, let it flow, in essence.
I think that would be a big step forward in your relationship.
Hot, too hot to handle. But here's the interesting thing, because you asked earlier about my mom's passing, and it's still in process. Had an interesting experience. I was talking with the woman who did the interview with Dr. Adi two L's, and so there's this whole spiritual realm, and as you well know, there's a part of me that questions it. Are we just making this up to feel good about the inevitability of death? But I mentioned to this woman, because she's like a friend, that my mom was passing. And she said, oh, I'm getting like she's here with me, and I'm like, okay, yeah, right. She goes, did she call you Gregory? I'm like, no. And I said, she called me Greggy, and she said, that's what she said, Greggy. What is that? And I was like, and so, here's this individual that she wouldn't call me Greggy of her own. Oh, poor COVID Mark has just been muting and choking and muting and coughing, spreading COVID throughout his sacred space like a Chinese laboratory.
So you got this person who wants to be a medium, but seems a lot more like a charlatan, a wannabe than an
No, I
actual
don't.
medium.
No, she's on point. See, I knew like if I told the truth of it, but I could tell in my conversation that what happened is she heard Greggy, but it didn't make sense to her. And so
Got it.
she was like in her head going, Gregory, is that like, did she call
We
you?
started talking about this spiritual stuff as if it might be kind of something we made up, right? And then there's this whole thing about how mediums can be charlatans to try
Absolutely.
and
Right,
create a monetary source for us.
right.
Um,
Just
I
like
mean,
there's
what
real politicians and charlatan politicians. Politics has been on my thoughts a lot. We're
wow,
going
you
to hop
keep
all
changing the
over.
subject very
I know
rapidly.
we are going to be bouncing. This is the bouncy ball. Don't land anywhere. Talk about Mark Golden Bear went.
More coffee, please.
More coffee.
We can talk about all of it at once. Death, politics, and spiritualism, they all
Charlatanism,
intersect at the nexus
anal
of the
hot
human
sauce,
shadow. They all
hot
intersect at the
pussy.
nexus of the human shadow.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Bring it.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly
Have you
right.
seen your mother, baby, standing in the shadow?
Yeah. So this is not your first coffee, I suspect. Oh, and he drains it.
It
For
is
those of you
my
who
first
cannot see us
coffee.
right now, he just poured a giant mug down his gullet.
Oh no, I
And he's
need
now
more.
wishing for more.
You know what I did to this one is I put a little maple syrup into it, so it had
Oh,
that
yeah. So
sweet
it's
kick.
sugar and caffeine.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah,
Very good. Very good.
yeah.
I was drinking apple cider soda. That was what I was drinking.
That's very sad to me.
It very much helps my pH and my alkalinity.
You know what helps my PhD?
Fluffing.
College credits.
College credits. Okay.
I don't have one. All right. Where are we going? Where are we now?
We are in a morass of multiple vectors of subjects from spirituality, politics, and the shadow. And the thing we haven't said yet, which is going to be way better.
What is the thing we haven't said yet?
We'll know when we get there.
We are in a labyrinth of chaos and madness. It's like we've pulled over on the side of the road. We're looking at a road map that's 20 years old, wondering where the fuck are we?
We
And
put up
why
the
don't we have
kickstand and we've
cell
still got
service?
the throttle engaged. The wheels are spinning, but we're
That's
going
right.
nowhere.
We're looking at our phones that are dead in the water because there's no cell service.
If we pop the clutch on this baby, we'll do a wheelie.
Yeah.
Woo!
I wonder, what do you call that bar that's in the back of a chopper? That's way up like the.
Well, it's very politically incorrect.
Really?
It's
What's it
called a
called?
sissy bar.
Really?
Yep. In case you're afraid of falling off the back, that's what it's there for.
All right. So, like the Hells Angels, when they put one of those on their bikes, they go, hey, why don't you weld on one of them badass sissy bars?
Well, I don't know. I don't want to speak for the Hells Angels. That can be hazardous to your health. But I have heard them referred to that, and I haven't had a nice long conversation. Can we call a friend? Do you know any Hells Angels that we can call?
No, but I'd be willing to speak with one because there's so many rumors about who they are and what they're about.
Well,
Like
that's because
Hunter S. Thompson.
there's so many different realities of who they are.
Well, that's probably true.
So Wikipedia shows it as a sissy bar.
Okay.
A sissy bar, also called a sister bar or a passenger backrest. is
Oh,
an addition to the rear of a
that
bicycle or
sounds like a
motorcycle.
fucking democratic piece of bullshit.
That
May
it
I
allows
have
the
a
passenger to recline against it while riding. Alternatively, it can serve as a place to put your handcuffs during sex. No, it doesn't say that on Wikipedia.
Yeah, it does.
They can serve as one of the main mounts securing the rear.
I would like to mount her rear. Hey, wait
Oh,
a minute now.
over the years, the sissy bars have been a focal point of expression of the bike builder. Custom sissy bar designs can be simple or extravagant. They can be built for comfort, purpose, style, or a combination of all three.
Hey, did you ever get into the bicycles that lowriders, modify into rad fucking like if you look up lowrider bicycle,
Well, I've
the
seen them, but you're asking me if I'd ever gotten into them.
yeah,
And the
not
truth is,
necessarily own one, but just sort of been enthralled by what they are.
well, I think they're awesome. I've seen some that really rise to the level of works of art.
Yeah.
And I think that the whole culture of vehicle as art, whether it's cars and lowriders or custom rods,
Rat
and
rods.
then, well, I'm, particular to the Latinx community, this idea of really bringing stuff into an artistic place is part of what you drive. It's another layer of the way they look at style and the way that they look at, this idea of how we project ourselves is beautiful and has power and grace and stuff to it. And so I've always appreciated it. I mean, I had a Schwinn Stingray when I was a 10-year-old, 9-year-old.
With a
It was
banana seat.
with the high handlebars and the banana
You
seat.
see, yeah.
Yep, it was a lot of fun, and I used to try to jump stuff with it, and the handlebars would always go whoop.
Woo, yeah.
But you could certainly do wheelies a lot easier with those
Yes. Yeah.
handlebars, and the goosenecks always got stripped out, right?
Yep. Yeah. Did you ever go move into a motocross dirt bike? Like bicycle?
I dabbled with it a little bit because I had some friends in junior high school that were actual BMX riders and racers, and I went to see them race a couple of times. And at that point, I'd really moved into my skateboarding phase, and I wasn't that interested in BMX. But I tried a few crazy things on them once.
My friends and I used to build dirt tracks for BMX bikes, and I think I told you, like, one of the jumps I went and landed on my front tire, rode for about 10 feet on the front tire, and then bam, right over onto my head.
That's an interesting trick. Like I've seen that done on skateboards more readily, but what they can do on those acrobatic bikes now is just phenomenal. It's like a
Yeah,
whole other world. It's
fucking
acrobatics. It's Olympic level as far as I'm
yeah.
concerned. And the guys that do it with motorcycles too. It's like, well, gee.
Yeah, have you seen there's the guys who are like black gang members, and they have the three-wheelers, and there's this, like, on Instagram and stuff, I see out like riding a wheelie for, like, on a freeway, like, forever. Just, on and on, and they're like these. In fact, I think there was a documentary about, like, this kid who wanted to join them, and um
Well, I've seen short form video that has people doing lots of wheelies, but nothing as specific as you described it.
yeah, it's like a thing.
Yeah, I believe it.
It's kind of like the Compton Cowboys, like this thing that brings unity, family off the streets into sort of a positive, but still got a little bit of that outlaw vibe to it, like
Yeah.
we're not
Yeah. It's edgy.
edgy. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Uh, that daredevil part of us that wants to kind of be bad and get away with it, and also wants to do something that no one else is good at, right? It's like, look at
Yeah.
me. Vroom, vroom, vroom. Oops. Oh, no. Come
Well,
visit me in the hospital, please. Look at me here.
yeah, that's part of it. That's part of pushing the edge.
Well, and that's what the Hells Angels, started out as, not necessarily as motorcycle acrobats, but like people who wanted to live by their own standards and travel the country in a way that suits them. And
Wasn't
you
it
know,
post World War II? Like it was started off with a few vets, like Barker, what's his name?
Sonny Barker,
Barger, Sonny
Barger.
Barger.
Yeah, I don't know
Oh,
what the history of the Hells Angels is, honestly.
I think.
Know that they were involved in Grateful Dead and concert stuff in the 60s. It says here that they originated on March 17th, 1948 in Fontana, California.
Whoa! He just passed away June 29th
Yeah,
this year.
Sonny Barger. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think it started, I think you're right. It was they were um Hell's Angels were a B-17 um fighter, were bomber pilots. That's where it started, was that the Hell's Angels was a particular plane. And there's a Howard Hughes movie about the fighter pilots from it. But yeah, Ralph Sonny Barger was the founder of the Oakland Charter, and Fontana, Oakland, San Francisco were, some of the early ones, and then it went on to Chino, Pomona. I think also that TV series that came out about 4 years ago. I forget the name of it, but they wanted to call it Hell's Angels, but of course they wouldn't let them. And but it was about a motorcycle gang that commits murder and runs drugs. And the current spinoff is, the Hispanic version of it.
Oh, right. Yeah.
There's something about the outlaw spirit, right? It's part of what we're into here, is this idea of doing what we want and coloring outside of the lines and claiming our individuality through this action-based motion of seeing the world and the feeling the wind in your hair and the freedom to, have the wind on, be on two wheels and ride around, you know. Um,
Well, I think that's our ultimate spirit, is free, and we desire to live that way. We desire to live freely, that just, I think any individual, without whether they're believe in God or spiritual or they don't, everyone, that's like a common thing, is freedom, the desire for freedom.
well, and motorcycle clubs and outlaw clubs like the Hells Angels, there's a kind of ethos that goes with that, that's about serving your community, about being accountable to something greater than yourself. So it's both freedom and being part of something. That's where the angels part comes in. It's like we're gonna agree to do stuff that most people wouldn't have the courage to own up to wanting to do. We're not going to let ourselves be shackled by the Judeo-Christian framework. We're going to do stuff that's a little edgy, or a lot edgy. And then we're going to back each other up, because we know that once we're out there on life's edge, we need each other to like rally around and protect each other and keep each other safe and have each other's back.
Well, Sonny's last words, his last sentence that they posted on Facebook, is keep your head up high, stay loyal, remain free, and always value honor.
Yeah. Right.
That's pretty solid advice right there.
It is. There's just something about the motorcycle club ethos that is part of the zeitgeist of Americana. It's got a shadowy underbelly too. Like they'll take the law into their own hands. Justice has a different feel and look to it when it comes to motorcycle club justice.
And with all we've learned about justice in the United States from a Black perspective, like I think outlaw, and I use that term loosely, but outlaw motorcycle clubs and Black people probably are a lot closer in unity to their look on the justice system of federal government and local governments.
Well, I'd say that's a stretch. Like, there doesn't seem to be a lot of famous people of color motorcycle clubs. The Hells Angels tend to be pretty white, right? There's a kind of white supremacy that probably lives within the framework of the Hells Angels.
I don't know. I don't think. I think there's probably that in individuals in the club because there's just those people are on our planet. But I've heard Sonny. I read one of his autobiographies or biographies or I don't think I know there's Black Hells Angels.
Well, I mean, it's going to be the exception that proves the rule, right? It's not
But what
very
I'm saying is
prevalent.
that they both, I believe, they both look upon the justice system of the United States of America with a lot of not trepidation, you know, like a lot of distrust in it. Like we don't really think you're here to protect and serve us.
Okay, so it says, according to this, that Black people are not allowed in the Hells Angels.
Where'd you see that?
I'm looking it up on the internet.
You've seen it on their website?
It's a kind of it's a PDF. It's a PDF file talking about demographics, and there's something called the 1%ers Black motorcycle gangs, but that one of the rules of the Hells Angels is you can't be Black. The Hells Angels have never had a Black member, despite not being a racist club. So that's what they're saying. Yeah. Yeah. So it appears as though, based on a cursory internet search, that it's not something that you can be as a Black Hells Angel.
Right. And then, because, yeah, I see here, there's a quote from Sonny Barger. If you're Black, you want to join the Dragons.
Right.
That's how it is, whether anyone likes it or not. We don't have no Blacks and they don't have no whites.
But they are officially allied with the Aryan Brotherhood, which is a neo-Nazi white supremacist gang. So
really,
yeah.
Hells Angels?
Yes, absolutely. They're white supremacists for sure.
Huh. Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, which is, there's a lot of separation around, racial identity, right? So there's Black motorcycle groups, there's Hispanic motorcycle groups. It's another continuation of this sort of divided.
So weird. Yeah, I don't know. That's a little strange for me.
Yeah, they're headquartered in Oakland, so they could likely be hearing us. And there's a whole lot of information synthesizing it all into the Department of Justice considers them an organized crime syndicate.
Right. And there's the thing that's interesting is there is a lot of myth. Like I know Hunter S. Thompson's book where he went undercover, like joined their gang and then wrote the book. And from what I've heard, he made up a lot of stuff. That's their take on it.
Yeah.
Of course, who knows for sure. I guess, just to be, as I sit here with where we're at, where we've landed, I don't really care to the degree, like, I guess I do have curiosity, but I certainly don't have a desire to join their gang and get into that. I don't know. You know what? I'm taking back what I just said. I'm going to join. No, I'm not. If what you're saying is real about them being aligned with the white supremacists and, not allowing people of color into the club. That's not a club I really want to be a part of.
Yeah, well, they're part of what we sort of talked about having this conversation about. There's a shadow aspect to them. They are acting out a kind of darker aspect of themselves, right? Which is, this not law bound. They're not bound by convention. They're bound by their oaths to themselves and oaths to others and their honor, whatever that means. And where's the honor in being a racist
Right.
motorcycle gang?
Right.
Right. Well, I mean, what I noticed in my own life was that I was scared of them. And then when I actually interacted with members of the gang or members of the motorcycle club, there was a kind of respect that came up. And so, I mean, one of the stories is that, my mom and my dad and my mom's boyfriend, at one point, they sold basically everything they could. They were renting, and we packed stuff into a couple of vehicles. And me and my sisters went camping in Northern California. And the idea was we were going to find another place to live. We were going to move into some Northern California town. And so what we would do is we'd roll up and we'd find a campground. We'd make camp. The adults would go into town and buy supplies and kind of scope around, looking for jobs, looking to see what the vibe was like. Right. Well, in one of those campgrounds, we were like there on a Thursday and it was almost empty. And on Friday, a whole fucking bunch of motorcycle gang members showed up and rolled in and took over the camp. And I remember how loud they were and how raucous they were and how, actually how much fun it was to have them all around and to feel all of that excited freedom. Like they were partying hard. Right. And my parents were not too happy about it, but they also weren't in a position to like break camp and run away. So we made a big pot of chili and we shared it with everybody. And, they kept my sisters and me kind of out of sight for most of the weekend, but I remember the vibe. And I remember because I'm white, there was a kind of openness to me, right? Like I could go and look at the bikes and they'd be like, "Oh, what, you like them, huh?" But don't fucking touch it. Touch it, I'll kick your ass, kind of thing, right? Like there's that whole sort of duality to it. And this was 75, 74, 75. So, the most of
that's what's interesting about that. I just saw the similarity between their bikes are sacred and sacred tomes and religions, like in the Jewish religion, the Torah, you actually use a pointer to follow along the text because you're not supposed to touch the Torah with your hand.
right.
So this element of sacredness, the untouchableness of sacredness.
Well, and a man who, builds a bike that's of a certain caliber, he has a certain respect. He's faster, when it breaks down, it reflects on him, that he's not very, it's back to that sort of Zen and the art of motorcycle maintenance kind of thing, where it's like being in one, knowing what's up with your bike and being able to fix it yourself. And, that whole thing. There's a reason that they're considered a crime syndicate, right?
Yes.
So, and they did security at Altamont, which tells you a lot about
which went really wrong.
Right.
Really.
But for a long,
and
long
that
time,
was the Grateful Dead's brilliant idea.
It actually wasn't the Grateful Dead's idea.
That's what I heard it was.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of good books about the Altamont concerts, but
all right, whose idea was it?
Well, what I'll talk about is that when Ken Kesey first started doing things with out in La Honda, parties at his house with the Grateful Dead for about the first 6 months or so. The Dead and a bunch of Bay Area proto hippies, and
Oh, that's right. The Hells Angels
they
showed up.
showed up at a couple of
Right.
those, and they
Yeah.
got dosed. They got heavily hit with acid,
Right.
and
Right.
they were welcome.
Right.
And because there was no, schism, no kind of judgment of them, that whole ethos of, hey, we do what we want. We're hippies. We're the Grateful Dead. We're going to get fucked up on acid, and we're going to do what we want. So you guys are just doing what you want. And the whole on the road thing, and the whole the relationship of Kerouac and this idea of being on the road, that ethos kind of fit, it kind of dovetailed. And
Right.
so this
Right.
relationship form of mutual respect between the two camps, right? It was like, the Grateful Dead and the pranksters became friends with the Hells Angels on a certain level,
Right.
right?
Common bonding with freedom and the
Right.
road.
And so there were times when it was helpful to be in that position, bus breaks down, a couple of Hells Angels drive by, right?
Right. Right.
Amphetamines were also very, very much a part of that culture. So there was probably some mutual access to amphetamines that both sides gave each other, weed and amphetamines and beer. Like that's like probably one of the common areas of agreement, right?
And they were both on the same side of the law's eyes, you
And I
know.
also think there's this thing about polyamory. It wasn't polyamory at the time. We called it free love, but I think there's a kind of thing with the hippie movement, and that it's like, hey, your chick, she can fuck whoever she wants. And if that's me, because I'm a hot motorcyclist, then you better not complain about it. And it doesn't mean I want to like take her away from you necessarily, although maybe I do, right? It's like the old ladies is what I think that's where that term came from. She's my old lady. No one said girlfriend,
Right.
right? It wasn't my wife, although I'm sure there were some Hells Angels that were married. I have a feeling Sonny Barger was married.
Yeah.
But being a woman in that crowd, man, like I can only imagine the amount of sexual abuse and that you suffered as a result.
Well, even like I think part of that age, even I hear stories from the Black Panthers that there was a lot of guys doing a lot of talking and blah blah blah, and really the women were doing the day-to-day feeding, cleaning up, sexual favors. Like there was a whole lot of misogyny in that whole hippie thing. And
Yeah, because that was still the hangover from the traditional roles of what men and women were. We,
right, right.
just before the real advent of feminism, right?
Yeah, which is interesting because then with the whole advent of feminism, and I'm currently reading and from Heal Thyself, learned a lot about how Black women didn't find a place in modern feminist movement because it wasn't acknowledged. The racist aspect wouldn't be acknowledged. And um, so, where does that bring us? Brings us to 21st century, 2022, August, where we're on the verge, on the precipice of just jumping into the fires of hell,
We don't
burning
see a
all
lot of Hells
everything.
Angels rolling around the Bay Area. There was a time when you pretty much could depend on seeing one on the highway every couple of days, right?
Why do you
I don't.
think that is?
Well, probably because there's a lot less of them, and probably because they're not necessarily like you and me. We run in Marin. It's not like a known Hells Angels area. But if we lived closer to where their headquarters were, we'd see them more often, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, what's that big gathering that's down
Sturgis,
Sturgis?
yeah, the motorcycle conference of
Right. Like
conferences.
I don't even see a lot of in the current photos from that. I don't see Hell's Angels there. We're gonna get a phone call. Listen, you fucking dimwits. You talk
Well,
about our
I'm
club
not going to run
again.
around pointing my phone at Hell's Angels and posted it on social media.
Ah,
It's not something I'm going to do.
come to the shadow, make love in the shadow, and
Right. But I
be.
think that's kind of the desired result. It's like, look, we command a certain level of respect because we will use violence according to our own principles, not necessarily being concerned about going to jail over it.
That's one thing I've found in my personal experience of kind of rubbing elbows with criminals here and there, that there's this element of respect and reality. Like, you get respect first, like that's where we start. And if you erode it, which will happen quickly, you get the consequences of that. Like, in other words, you were talking about how at the camp, your interaction with Hell's Angels was that there was this aspect of respect for you.
Well, for a
And
9-year-old kid.
well, yeah, but that's what I mean, that there's, I think, predominantly, and there's a bad seed in every bunch, but
Yeah.
predominantly the law of an outlaw is we start with respect. That's where we're starting. And if you fuck that, you get the consequences
See,
of
I would
fucking.
disagree. I don't think you actually have respect as a given. What you get is distance, right?
It's
So
not been my
you're not,
experience.
you don't get, if respect is earned. And so if you show up and you violate like the
No, here,
personal space, or if you are at all look at them fucked up in any way, then that's not going to, you're not going to have respect. The
no, see,
respect
here's
comes
what I'd
from
say.
being respectful.
Respect, I think, starts, you have respect. Trust is earned. And respect can be eroded quickly. Like, if you go into a space and instantly disrespectful, well, you fucked that immediate respect that was there to be had, but you fucked it.
I don't agree,
That's been
Greg.
my
I don't think
experience. That's been my experience with the
tolerance,
criminal element.
yes. Initial tolerance, yes. While they suss out who you are. I'm not going, respect is something else. Like, for the Hell's Angels to respect you, they would have to see some kind of level of honor and commitment to craft of your
So you're
own.
saying that respect is, are they using a funnel when they pour that hot sauce into your ass? Or are they just smashing that bottle right in there and letting it flow?
It's an interesting way that you try to term that, but
I didn't try to, I did it successfully, turned it
yeah.
back on itself, bringing us back to that holy place where we started this conversation 50 minutes ago.
Lordy. That's the thing about getting on the bike and riding wherever the winds take you. You don't know exactly where you're going to end up, but boy, is it an adventure every time.
That's for sure.
Yeah. I think we should celebrate the idea of freedom and the idea of resilience and the idea of self-determination. And I certainly respect motorcycle clubs in general for the way that they've carved out their own sort of social society. And at the end of the day, I've seen some generosity from Hell's Angels, and I've seen some brutality and murder.
Have you seen
So,
brutality and murder from them
yeah,
with your
yeah,
own eyes? That must
yes.
have been kind of shocking.
Well, yeah. I mean,
When you were part of Jerry's thing, like doing the lights and all that, did you ever interact with any Hell's Angels? And
not directly as a result of that. No, that was mostly the hippie crowd.
um,
I saw stories. There were bikes. Occasionally there were motorcycles, but it wasn't, like the old days where, there would be the whole club would show up at the Fillmore and party.
right. Um, I have this question for you. As we talk about human freedom and the desire to be free, and one of the famous stories of Judeo-Christian religion is the tree of life, and being, or was it the tree of knowledge? The tree of knowledge, being told, don't eat the fruit from this tree. And so there was a and a boundary to freedom placed in the Garden of Eden. What do you think that's about?
Well, like a lot of Christian mythos, I think there's something there that is part of a set of storytelling that has sort of a guidance at its center. But if we extrapolate, symbolically and hermetically, and what is the tree of life and what is the tree of knowledge, and what's the risk of eating the fruit of the tree of knowledge, it's sort of beyond me in terms of my own wisdom. What I'll say about it that might be useful is that a little bit of knowledge can be liberating, but it can also be very dangerous. It's wisdom that really matters. And so we can sort of see that having all the knowledge of how the world works from a material science point of view doesn't actually give us the wisdom to maintain the Garden of Eden that we were given. So when you think of it in terms of that metaphor, we've eaten too much from the tree of knowledge and not enough from the tree of life, where we understand the interconnectedness. And we're beginning, we've sort of got that movement is re-arising within human awareness right now. But generally speaking, the tree of knowledge corrupted us because it fed the ego the sense of power, the creation power. But it's unbridled. It's not tempered by the wisdom of, understanding the way it all works together. So by taking things apart and having a little bit of knowledge, we seem to lack the wisdom of, long-term preservation. For instance, the sort of indigenous cultural narrative of 7 generations from now and and we result from 7 generations. If you look at, here's just this idea of let's build a spaceship that can travel light years to another world where we could populate that another world. It's going to have water and all the different conditions that we have on Earth, right? The reality is that you couldn't build anything better than the Earth to make it through light years of millennia of human evolution. The truth is the Earth is the best spaceship we've ever built and will ever be built for the perpetuation of the human race. And the idea of putting us all in a capsule and sending us off to like Alpha Centauri or Sirius A or whatever so we can populate a planet, that's pretty much drunk ass thinking as far as I'm concerned. Because what's right in front of us is so much more rich and plentiful, and with my hope is that the knowledge we've acquired will turn towards the tree of life again, and it will reinvigorate our sense of reestablishing the balance in relationship with nature. Instead of seeing ourselves outside of nature, we remember that who we really are is a part of nature. Interstellar travel to me is a spiritual journey. I don't see it as a physical journey. That's my take on it. And so the best spaceship is right here in our own backyard. And so the tree of life, the tree of wisdom would teach us that. And the tree of knowledge can be such a short-term viewpoint. It's like, you know what? If you gave me a Harley Davidson and a bunch of tools, I could probably take that sucker apart. Probably not put it back together and make it work right again. But maybe, given enough time. And that's
if I gave you a funnel and a bottle of Tabasco.
Tabasco and a funnel. Well, I wouldn't need the funnel for anything, but if you gave me a bottle of
Oh,
Tabasco
is
and
that
some
bypass?
scrambled eggs, if you gave me a
That's
bottle of
spiritual
Tabasco and some
bypassing.
scrambled eggs, I would use it.
That's spiritual bypassing. Did we just experience spiritual bypass?
What's the funnel for again?
Yeah. Okay, roll back to minute 1 of our
I don't need
podcast.
it. I don't need to go down that road. The Hershey Highway is not for hot sauce.